Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Learn with Jason. Today on the show, we're going to do an Ask Me Anything. So it's been a while since we've done one of these. I feel like it's always kind of fun to just hang out, just you and me, chat. That's it, and just kind of go through any questions and stuff. I feel like a lot of times we don't have time to dig into the real tangent stuff because we don't want to derail the guests too much, right? Like, I do a good enough job of that on my own. So given some space like this is always a lot of fun for me. I love just hearing what everybody has on their mind, and it's super fun for me to talk to y'all about whatever it is you're interested in. So please feel free to fire away with any questions. And content security policy, just going right for it. Okay, so content security policy is one of those things that is very cool to set up, a little tricky to set up. I am not an expert on this because, to be completely honest, I have only read through articles on it. I haven't even bothered to set it up on my own because, unfortunately, at this point in time, I just haven't had the opportunity to really think through it. So I'm very guilty of not having paid this the proper attention. It is hard. It's hard the way that Coors is hard. Like cross-origin requests, the mechanic of it is not hard, but the mental model of it is hard. And what I found with it is that it's one of those things that what helps me, here's how I finally understood Coors is I drew a map. I was trying to okay, so what is Coors actually doing, right? And so you're sending an options request to figure out whether or not you're allowed to get the thing, and then if it doesn't get back those headers, then it's gonna. So there's all this kind of stuff that's happening, and it makes sense. You're saying, hey server, can I have this content? And the server says, well, here's who's allowed to have that content, and then the browser says, oh hey, that's me, I can have this, and then it sends the full request. And I feel like the content security policy is kind of the same thing where you're sending headers that basically define permissions, what's allowed, what's not, and that's about as much as I remember off the top of my head. So maybe try actually mapping the journey of the browser says this, the server says this, the headers say this, and this is how the stuff actually makes that all work. Yeah. I see some first-time chatters in here. Welcome, Ian Douglas. Welcome, NARTC. Yeah, what's up, y'all? I'm having a great day. I'm in a good mood today. I stole Marissa's mug. Look at this one. This one makes me smile. Xander, how are you doing today? I'm doing great. Let's see here. I'm seeing some questions come in. So Ian Douglas says, which companies do you know of that use DevRel as an education tool, work on open source, etc., that are also hiring? Let's see. So yeah, I think it might help to just frame DevRel in general, right? To kind of talk about what the role of it is. And what I found is that when you think about developer relations, it falls into multiple buckets depending on the company. So there is developer relations as a pure marketing role. Your job in DevRel is to go to an event and give a talk and collect leads. And you'll see that at some of the bigger companies where DevRel's basically their job description is go scan badges at events. And that can be, fun. You get to go to a lot of events, you get to meet a lot of people. It's if you're into that travel lifestyle, you want to see a lot of cities, it is a great way to go. As the pandemic came in, and as the community has matured a little bit, we've started to understand that one of the bigger benefits of developer relations is the community building of it. So me giving a talk at an event is great. I'm going to talk to 50 to maybe 1,000 people at a really big event, and we'll have a good conversation. But who knows how many of those people are actually paying attention? Who knows how many of them are at the right place in time to actually need the content that I'm sharing, whether or not they're paying attention, whether or not it's relevant to their job, because tech conferences usually cover quite a bit of breadth. And so, for an ops engineer or an SRE, it might not be as interesting to hear me talk about the front end. Or maybe it's interesting but not actionable, right? And so when you start thinking about community, it's less about me talking to you and more about creating a space where all of us can talk to each other. And I think that that's really the strength of developer relations, as a lot of companies are starting to embrace it, is that you're not trying to create a marketing channel. You're trying to create a space for discussion where people are interested in the things that you are involved in. So for example, at Netlify, one of the ways that we think about developer relations, developer experience is less on like, can I sell you Netlify, and more on, can I help you connect the dots of like why we care about this Jamstack architecture with the value, like the value that you want to create at your job. You know, we want to ship quickly. We want to have less maintenance. Nobody wants pager duty. We want fewer production bugs and all those sorts of things. So can we talk about how this architecture actually solves that problem, and how the tools in the ecosystem, so not just Netlify, but like, you know, frameworks like Astro and the strength that they have for like shipping less JavaScript, which is a better user experience. And for, you know, the same with like 11D, right? And so we're trying to put more investment into our open source stuff, both in, you know, educating people about it, because one of the big challenges that we run into is like companies have full marketing budgets behind frameworks. So when you have a VC funded framework with a cloud behind it, like, of course you're going to hear about it. They've got people paid full time to do that. Open source frameworks don't have that. Like, you don't have anybody full time behind like solid JS who can just do marketing campaigns to explain the benefits. So, you know, how do funded companies like Netlify try to lend some of our resources to benefit open source in those ways? And you see that happen across a lot of different companies in the DevRel space. And so that creation of community, that support of the ecosystem, is a really important way to start approaching just community in general, and the strength of the community. If everybody is feeling supported here, and this is the best way for you to move forward and build things, then Netlify is an incidental at that point. You're in this community, and we're confident that we provide one of the best experiences, so that as you start using this way of building things, you'll also start using Netlify, because it's a natural place for you to land. So I'm not selling you on Netlify. I'm selling you on the benefits of using this approach. And hopefully, if you agree that this approach is going to solve the problems that we believe it solves, then you will land on Netlify. And so it's an indirect marketing play. It's no longer like me saying like, hey, use Netlify today. Here's a discount code. Let me scan your badge. It's more of trying to get real value connected to the actions, and real value of like why we started this company in the first place. Why do we offer Netlify out there? All of those things are really beneficial to people. So when you talk about DevRel that way, that leads into education and kind of, are we out in the community teaching people? Are we helping people connect the dots? Are we trying to get people through their first experience? Companies that do this really well, I think like Apollo is a great example of this. Peggy Reyes was an incredible DevRel before she moved out, and I think that now Kurt Kemple has kind of taken over in her stead, and he's equally excellent at this. You know, you're seeing good movement from like Demetrius Clark was over at Cloudinary. They've done really good work, and you've seen like Demetrius actually just joined us at Netlify. We're very happy to have him over working on Jamstack community meetup stuff. So if you're interested in running a Jamstack meetup, now you're going to get to work with Dom, which I would say is a great reason to start a Jamstack meetup, because he's excellent. You've got you know, the Rust community. I don't know if any companies are actively doing DevRel for Rust, but oh my goodness, is the Rust community good at being like inclusive and welcoming. I've seen really good work come out of like Algolia is good at this. Sarah Dayan and you know, Brian Robinson, and that's a great crew. You know, the Contentful team is pretty good. If you've ever met like Khala Garbaya, he's very good at this. And you know, there are a lot of companies that are doing it. I don't know who's hiring because I don't keep track of that, but I know that a lot of them are. The industry is hurting right now for folks who can do this kind of stuff. So if you do feel like you are the right kind of generalist to dive in, like, yeah, please do. So I'm gonna, sorry, I know that's not like a direct like, hey, go apply here, but that is a very long-winded answer to the like education and DevRel piece. But I do think it's starting to become more prevalent. More companies value it that way. I would just, when you apply, if you get into the interview process, start asking, what do they value? What do they care about? And you will get a sense very quickly of like, how are you measured as a DevRel? And the answers that they give you will be very indicative of what the culture is there. So yeah, that's that is one way to take it. Imachi asks, what technology am I currently investing in to implement in your project? So currently I have a few things that I'm really excited about. I am just very excited about the next generation of underlying build tools. So things like ESBuild and Vite, tools like the Rust ecosystem and what it's enabling. I know like Apollo just dropped a Rust compiler or a Rust, what is it? You can use like GraphQL in Rust. I can't remember exactly what they're doing under the hood, but it was like a set of tools to do that. And I thought that was great. We're seeing like Cat Marchand is dropping really good error handling and surfacing for Rust. And so the Rust ecosystem in general is wonderful. And if you are not familiar with Chris Biscardi, who I talk about a lot on here, he just dropped rustadventure.dev, which I will drop a link to in the chat. That is a really great way to get into the Rust ecosystem with some solid lessons and things that you can learn there. But yeah, I'm also excited about what's being called the islands architecture or transitional apps. So things like Svelte and Astro and Solid.js, and there's a few others out there that are starting to come in where they're investing in this approach of you should build using the thing that has the best developer experience. You get to write in components. So for example, I'm very fast in React. So I'm going to write React components. But then when I feed those into Astro is going to compile those away and only ship HTML and CSS unless I explicitly opt in to interactivity, at which point I am, only loading that one little bit of JavaScript instead of having to hydrate a whole page into a React app to kind of function there. So it's very powerful in that way where you have it's really exciting because it basically means that we're eliminating more of the trade-offs. I get to work as a developer with the developer experience I like, which is writing my preferred flavor of JavaScript component, whether that's Vue, Svelte, React, Angular, whatever. And then because of tools like Vite and because of tools like Astro, they can compile away the components and just ship HTML and CSS for most of the informational stuff out there. And that means that there's no user experience trade-off. Like right now, when you use something like Next, for example, you get a great developer experience, and then you ship a lot of JavaScript that leads to a degraded customer experience. And that's true of any of like the React SPA style approaches. And it's not like an insurmountable trade-off. It's not like this is the worst thing in the world. But if you start playing that game of inches where you want to get that first contentful paint, the largest contentful paint, the cumulative layout shift, all these little things, the interactivity blocking, all that stuff that extra JavaScript really tends to impact, then you can start looking at these tools where you can use all the same components that you used in Gatsby or Next or your Create React app, drop them into something like Astro, or if you're not using React, if you're writing in Svelte, you use something like SvelteKit, and suddenly you're shipping like 10 to 30 kilobytes of JavaScript instead of like 150 to 400 kilobytes of JavaScript. And that these are the incremental gains that make the internet better, right? It's the paradigm that shifts forward. So this next generation of frameworks is really exciting to me, and I can't wait to see what people do with it. Let's see. Let's kind of run on down here. We've got, what's up, Xander? Doing great. How are you? Do AMAs stress me a little bit? So I think I'm a little bit weird because I don't get drained by doing live streams. Like when I do the show, it's not a big stressful thing for me. It's honestly something that kind of gives me energy. It's one of the few times when I have a chance to really like socialize and talk to people. I spend a lot of my week in meetings. And so this is a chance for me to joke around, to do, and usually during the show I'm coding. I don't know. I like having these conversations about like how stuff works and how I make decisions. So for me, AMAs are really fun. It's energizing rather than draining or stressful. Let's see. I'm just kind of scanning through the chat here, making sure I don't miss any. How do you know you're ready for your first JavaScript web dev job? I mean, the answer is that you don't. Like you're ready when you feel like you can build a project, right? And I think the important thing to remember is that there will always be more things to learn. You know, I've been doing this for close to 20 years, and I still feel like there's a ton of stuff I don't know. And if you asked me to do it, I couldn't do it. I don't think I could pass most of the whiteboard algorithm tests. Like I couldn't write a binary tree from memory. I know what it is. I don't know how to build one. You know, so there's a ton of stuff that I just don't know. And I won't know, but I'm really good at Googling now, right? So I think that getting a job, getting your first job is about believing in yourself enough not to know things, but to find the answer to things. And remembering, you know, you're not going to go in and interview for a senior level job. So you're not expected to be able to work entirely unassisted. You're going into work on a team. So you should be proactive and able to learn, and people shouldn't have to teach you things twice. And you should probably know like baseline vocabulary, but like you don't need to be completely self-sufficient as a developer to be an early career dev. You should be capable of working on a team and following instructions and you know, picking things up quickly. And that requires some baseline understanding. Like, you know, it's sort of like if you were going to go and be a writer, like being able to read, being able to understand the words on the page, that is important. Being the best writer in the world is not important. You just need to be able to string together thoughts. You will improve over time with coaching. You'll have an editor and those sorts of things. And coding is the same way. You'll start out by being able to accomplish things in the way you've found. Like you'll Google it. You'll have done it before and seen it done a way, and you'll be able to do it that one way. With coaching, you'll learn alternatives and different ways of thinking about it. You'll start to learn some of the foundational stuff, some of the theory, and that gives you lateral movement, and that's how you become more senior, is when when your thought process about things isn't like, I've seen it done like this, so I could emulate that, and more, what are we trying to accomplish here? There's a lot of different ways that we can get to the goal you're talking about. That's the path in seniority. But at the beginning, it's kind of like, hey, can you go like fix this homepage? We've got a broken link. Can you do that? Great, you're ready to be a junior dev, like 100%. So it's very much just kind of get the basic vocabulary, basic jargon, so that you can have a conversation with somebody about how you would go about finding something, and look for a company that's looking for people who do that. You know, there are lots of companies that are willing to invest in early career devs because they get to train you on their way of doing things, as opposed to bringing in somebody who's been doing this for a long time and has their own habits and is going to, you know, potentially be challenging to work with because they want to do it a certain way and the company does it a different way. So I mean, the hardest part is not necessarily the skills. The hardest part is getting the intro, getting the offer. And so networking and figuring out, you know, how to speak the language so that you can inspire confidence that you're capable of doing the job. That's almost more challenging than the skill set itself, because you know, you're trying to get somebody who has you don't have a portfolio yet, right? So you're basically, all you have is whether or not you project confidence that you can figure it out as your interview. And that makes it, you know, that makes it really important that you're able to have that conversation and get that stuff right. Let's see here. So see another first time commenter, Gaston Garcia. There's what seems to be an overwhelming amount of options for JavaScript developers to invest their time in. What do you think is a good place to focus on for developers? Beginners need to focus. What's a good path? My preference for learning is always to take on something practical. So don't worry about learning just in case. There's a conversation that I've heard in a few different channels about the idea of just in case learning versus just in time learning. And what I found with just in case learning is that it sort of becomes a hobby or a compulsion. It's like watching a documentary that has nothing to do with you. You're gathering information, but it's not information that you're acting on. And so it's almost a form of procrastination to learn without doing. So instead, especially professionally, it's good to be aware of what's going on, but you should try to learn things when you need them. So have a project in mind, have a goal that you want to accomplish, and then pursue that goal. And that kind of just in time learning means that you'll actually cement that information into your head. So I think that, you know, the thing that's important to keep in mind, web development and working in tech in general is a big, broad field, and there's just no way that any of us can know, especially when we're brand new to the field, what the best fit is for us. So when I came in, I started as a designer and a front end dev, and I would help people build marketing pages for their businesses. And as I did that, I learned that it was actually pretty fun for me to build the back end of stuff. And so I started doing more back end dev, and I became like a PHP dev and learned a bunch of stuff about databases and MySQL and how to string all that stuff together. And then I realized that that actually wasn't really what I wanted to do. I just liked the dynamic nature of that stuff. So I started moving back to the front end and thinking more about Node. And then when I realized that serverless was capable of doing that stuff, I started moving more towards serverless. And that's just on the dev side. On the career side, I ran an agency, and then I didn't want to be an agency runner anymore because that was a lot of sales and admin and stuff that I didn't like. So then I switched over to being a contractor. I worked for a company where they just had one project, they paid me a contract, and that's what I worked on. That didn't feel like it wasn't big enough. I wanted to do a little more ambitious stuff. And so I went to work for IBM, and I really liked the product work at IBM, but I found myself doing more educational internally, like teaching people how to do stuff. And I was like, oh, it's kind of fun to talk to devs about this stuff and kind of like explain the benefits of these different architectures. And that led me to like DevRel. I went to Gatsby to kind of work on building community and getting people aware of the benefits. And when I came to Netlify, it was more formal. Like it was very much like, all right, let's do this. Like now my job is almost no day-to-day coding and almost entirely education on, like, I do proof of concept on stuff. I learn about things. I talk to devs. I teach devs. And that's not at all what I would have thought that I was going to do when I joined the industry. So as you're learning, focus on chasing things that are interesting to you. As you start to learn more about what's possible, just, pick a project and start chasing these curiosities and learn more. Especially at the beginning, having a general understanding of how things fit together, it gives you latitude to start in one direction and then say, okay, I learned about that, and it turns out that's not really what I wanted. So let me kind of move this way and try this thing that seemed interesting. And that broad set of skills gives you the ability to kind of shuffle around. And, careers aren't linear, especially in tech. Careers are very, you start this way and then you're like, wait, I'm going to go this way. And then, oh, maybe I'll try this again. And, oh, just kidding. I actually did like that. Let's go here. So you should, explore that. And remember that, like, going into tech as a developer, you're going to learn things about the product side and the sales side and the business side and all these other pieces. Every single one of those is also another career path. A lot of developers move into product management because what they realize is they don't actually like building things, but they love the process of making sure that the right thing gets built. They like thinking through the product market fit. They like thinking through, how do we scope this down and break it into digestible pieces? That's product management, and that's a ultra valuable, ultra viable skill that a lot of developers are really good at, especially when you get into platforms like software as a service. And, it's hard to find product managers who have development skills. So there's so many pivots and transitions that you can do in this industry to find the right fit for you. So a lot of it is about, like, learn something when it's interesting and push forward on that. And that will start to open more doors as you go. Don't worry about learning it all. Don't worry about whether or not you're learning the right things. Learn the things that make sense. And, if it's for your job, obviously learn the thing you need to know for your job. If it's for continued learning, learn the thing that helps you accomplish your next side project. Let's see. Alan says, how does DevRel tend to work with support and feature requests? If you're out there, it feels easier to connect than sending to generic support. So the idea of DevRel is, we're sort of like the bridge between different parts of the company. And, like, we will hear what's coming from product and from engineering. And our goal is to try to figure out, how do we not just say, like, here's a feature, but why did this feature get made? What problems is it solving? And we work with marketing on that. And then we kind of take that out into the community. And then we'll also be the first ones to see what the community thinks about it. We're going to see the discussions, we're going to get feedback. And so a lot of times we're bringing that feedback back into the company. And sometimes that means, connecting support to a customer who's having a problem. Sometimes that means directing the customer to the right place to get the support that they need. Sometimes that means going to product and saying, like, hey, we totally missed on the implementation of this. Here's what people wanted and here's what we did. Can we adjust this to fit their needs? And other times we get to do fun stuff like celebrate because we launch something and people love it, and we get to just go around to the company and show people all the happy folks that we're seeing in the community who are like, oh, I'm so glad this thing finally exists. I needed this. And that's, that's what makes this job fun, is that you get to do a little bit of everything. And I think that there are like some personas here, and I can't remember who. I think it was Simon. What's his name? I'm gonna have to look this up. Simon Maps. What's his last name? No. Okay. I don't know where I'm gonna find this, but he's a consultant on like building maps for your business, how to do strategic mapping of a landscape, right? But one of the ways that he talks about career development, at least I think it's him, I might be getting this all wrong. Anyways, it's not the important part. The important part is that there are kind of three major buckets that people tend to fall into, and it's on a spectrum, so you're not going to fall cleanly into one of these buckets, but there are ways that people like to work. So at one end of the spectrum is what gets classified as pioneers. And that's the idea that you're the person who wants to go out into the unknown and work with no rules, lots of ambiguity, and just kind of try stuff, see what's possible, figure this out. You could put this in as inventors. You could put this in as R&D. You could put this in as somebody who likes to work on a team of one. Like they'll be the first engineer at a startup where somebody's got an idea and they'll say, hey, we want to build this tool. And you go, I don't know how that works, but I can figure it out. And so you just kind of dive into the deep end and see if you can make it work. That is, for some people, very fulfilling work. That is, for other people, like the most stressful kind of work. So more toward one of the other column here is that you've got people who would fall more into, I guess the like settlers, meaning like after somebody has proven that a concept is possible, like the pioneers discover this area, then the settlers are the ones who will go and say, okay, so you've got something, but it doesn't work. Like this isn't a product. This isn't a functional thing that can go out into the world and work. This is a concept. So let's take this concept and let's make it into a product. These are the people who will get the edge cases. They'll mature the idea. They'll think through how does this actually fit into the world and take it from a promising proof of concept to an actual usable, sellable product, right? And then you've got the third pillar, which is what they call city planners. So these are people who like to take functional products and scale them. So how do we build the processes that keep this thing healthy? How do we build the documentation and the systems and the support networks that will make this thing scale to all of our customers? These are folks who really excel in like high volume environments. Like, are you build like somebody who's very good at running a customer support org? They're probably a city planner because they're going to love building out the systems, making sure that all of the right pieces are in place, that there are checklists to make sure that people get the same support and that nobody falls through the cracks. And what I've found is that everybody I've met falls into one of these buckets more or less. And sometimes it's kind of on a spectrum. Like, you like doing a little bit of city planning, but you really like the process part, right? So you kind of want to help take it to maturity, but you really want to refine, like, how do we make this thing just hum? Like, how do we make sure that we eliminate all these things where somebody's in a Slack channel going, so who does this work? And others, I find myself more on the pioneer side. I love to try stuff and have ideas, but I'm really bad at like doing the last 15% of taking my wild idea to a functional, like usable product. So I can do it. I have done it, but I have the most fun when I'm out exploring and ambiguity and, hey, no parents, no rules. Let's figure this thing out. So thinking through too, like where you fit on that spectrum can be really helpful. And I find that DevRel in general tends to sit a little more on the exploration and like chaos side of that. And so it makes it a fit for us to be in the role we're in, because we get to go talk to all these departments. We do a little bit of everything. And that can be really engaging if this is a thing that doesn't stress you out, right? Like if not really having a clearly defined work stream and knowing that a lot of the work you do is reacting to the changing landscape, then DevRel can be a good fit. I know there's a ton of questions in here and I'm going long-winded. So Actually, let me do a quick thing because I haven't done it yet. Let's take a look. I'm gonna just do a quick shout out to the sponsors because we've had live captioning with us all day. Ashley's here from White Coat Captioning, writing down all the things that I'm saying. So if you want a written record of the AMA today, you can find that on learnwithjason.dev. And then that is made possible through the support of our sponsors, Netlify, Fauna, and Auth0, who all kick in to make the show more accessible to more people. I was talking about Rust Adventures. Let me just throw that one up one more time since we're here. And yeah, let's switch back. I don't know why I opened up the interview mode instead of the other one. I meant to open up this one here. Nope, not that one either. This one. Yeah, that's the one. So that everybody can actually see what's going on. Yeah, here's the sponsors, Netlify, Fauna, Auth0. Here's the captioning, White Coat Captioning. You can see that on the learnwithjason.dev there. And with that, I'm going to switch back into this view because I don't have anything to show just yet. And yeah, let's see. Questions. Marlon Marcelo asks, sort of a generic question, but what is your day-to-day like as a DevRel and a developer experience engineer? So I kind of ran through that with like you go out into all the different pieces of things. My job is significantly different now that I'm in the VP role. So I will say that it's not the same job that it was when I was an individual contributor. I'm happy to answer questions about the VP role. I feel like that's probably less interesting than the IC role. So I will just quickly recap that, as an IC in DevRel or Dev Experience, you spend a lot of your time moving between different parts of the ecosystem. So you're talking to product, you're talking to support, you're talking to sales and marketing. You're also talking to active customers. You're talking to the community. You're talking to the ecosystem and open source frameworks and other partners that are in the space, trying to talk about like, how do we make this whole thing better? And then your job as a DevRel is to kind of pull those things together. And that can be through writing content. It can be through videos and live streaming. It can be through, putting together a proposal internally for how we can build some things that'll solve a pain point in the community. It can be setting up some co-marketing where, hey, we're going to go work with, like, for example, we're going to do a stream with PlanetScale soon because one of the pain points that we hear is that people have trouble with databases because how do you put a Jamstack database together? Like they seem like they don't really match because Jamstack is no servers and everything is short running and it's all static assets, but databases are the opposite of that. They're long running and they've got lots of variable data. So how do those things fit together? Well, we're going to get Jamstack together, or we're going to get PlanetScale together, we're going to get Netlify together, and we're going to talk about that and kind of show how we can make this work. Welcome, Semantics Dev. Thank you for coming in. What's up, Ben, friends? But yeah, so there's a ton of stuff there that is that's worth digging into. Let's see. Just looking at. Am I an extrovert? I am an ambivert, actually. I like being around people slightly less than half the time. I like to go to events, hang out with people, do big social things. But after a couple days of that, I will then spend a few days locked in my office, listening to music, working on a project, and not speaking to anyone for a few days. It drives my partner nuts because she'll be like, hey, let's go out and do, because she's a full extrovert, right? So she wants to go all the time and meet people and have people around. And I like that half the time. And then I'd like the switch flips and I'm like, no, I'm staying home. Like you go do whatever you want, but I got to just like sit quietly and stare at a wall for a while. And so that's been, it's kind of interesting because depending on the day, I'm an introvert or an extrovert. And that I think can be a little frustrating for people who have to hang out with me. Tom Fit, first time chatter, thank you. Hello. Asks, do you feel like being in DevRel has dulled my engineering skills, improved them, or kept them the same? Looking at moving over from engineering to DevRel, I'm worried about losing those technical chops. It depends on the role. So, for example, for me, I would say that I have gotten stronger as a general like front end architect. I've gotten stronger in the broad sense of like I can fit different technologies together because of the way that my role is structured. I've gotten weaker on the back end because I don't do any back end work at all anymore. I've gotten weaker on the like fine tuning ultra perf stuff because it's not part of the job that I do anymore. So I would say that if it depends on how you define the role. So I very much defined my role, like even when I moved into the VP slot, of making sure that the work I do is still has engineering. That's why I run Learn with Jason twice a week, for example, is it's engineering work. I'm trying things, I'm building things, because I feel like it's important to me to continually be learning what's out there, see how things fit together, keep up with trends that, I might not have a chance to write TypeScript professionally, but I definitely have a chance to learn about TypeScript from TypeScript professionals on the show as a way of making sure that I'm exposed to these technologies. I get a chance to learn them. So I would say that it is possible. Like we have DevRels whose some of the developer experience engineers on the team straight up work on our product sometimes, and that work, they are ultra sharp as engineers. We've got like Ben Hong, for example, is on the Vue core team. He's an ultra sharp engineer who is always improving his development skills. And then others of us, like Phil Hawksworth and I, we are really interested in engineering and we do a lot of engineering work, but I don't think that either of us really wants to go deep into product work anymore. Like we've done that, we've been there. And so for us, we're focused more on like the high level trends and making sure that we understand it, but not necessarily that it's something that we have the ultra deep, like, principal engineer understanding of exactly how that technology works. So I think you can set levels for yourself. You can set goals and just make sure that the role that you move into is built around those goals. And yeah, so it's a conversation you have to have with your team is the shorter answer to that. Figure out ability. I like that. What's the path to seniority in DevRel? This is a great question, Brandon. The path to seniority in DevRel is, so if we look at the ladder that we have in DevRel, and I can switch over actually to this really excellent tool here, which is Career Ladders. I think is it careerladders.dev? Sarah Drasner, who was the VP of Developer Experience before I took over, she wrote up these really good career ladders, and in doing this, set me up to have like the easiest job ever, because now I just get to refer to her work whenever I need to answer a question. So she did a great job of actually writing up a ladder of what changes between like the entry level. So early career DX would be, you're gonna advocate, you're gonna make samples and demos, and you're gonna like do some debugging, and you're just kind of like a positive point of presence in the community to help people get connected to the experience. As you move up the chain, like when you get to principal, like these are the folks who they're building systems, they're building out strategies, they're designing whole campaigns. They've got contacts across the industry and can not just answer questions, but can literally connect different people together. Oh, we're trying to do a partner push. Great. Let's see, like if we're doing a thing about the Jamstack, hey, let's go get the Sanity team and see if they want to like work together on this. And we can take like Sanity as the CMS and Netlify as the platform, and we'll take the, maybe the Nuxt team wants to work on how we'll do this with Nuxt, and that's the front end, and then we'll get some serverless functions in there. And you start thinking about how do we get all these different things to fit together in a meaningful way, and all of that leads to us having the ability to like do strategic, like company-wide efforts, and that'll happen like this is another big one is, a really senior developer experience engineer, they're going to show up on sales calls as closers. Our job is to go talk to the architects at a company that's considering moving to this architecture and like help talk through the challenges that they're going to have, and like how do we do incremental migration? How do you think about your existing system and how this would fit into it without having to boil the ocean? All of those are like very kind of advanced level things. Hey, what's up, Alex and friends? Welcome. We're doing a AMA today. So if you've got questions, fire them off. And so each of these things, to put a very fine point on it, at the early stages of a career, and this is true of developer experience, this is true of engineering, this is really true of any tech role that I've seen. The early career is, are you capable of working by yourself? Can you, to get to senior means that you're effectively self-sufficient on your own projects. You can do work without a lot of oversight. You can, somebody can hand you a project and you can execute on that project. As you get further up the level, you now have a team-wide impact. You, as a, say, a staff engineer, are capable of not just being productive on your own, but you can work with the early career engineers on your team in a, like, say, a project where 3 of you are working on it. The 3 of you now can function because the staff engineer is able to provide enough direction to those other engineers to make sure that everybody knows what they're working on and what they need to do. When you get into like senior staff or principal, now you've got kind of like org wide, like maybe they're driving initiatives at the whole developer experience organization or at the whole engineering level. And then when you get to the highest levels, you're now doing company wide or even industry wide impact by the way that you're being strategic. You're sitting in on like product meetings, you're sitting in on roadmap meetings and like customer and marketing and monetization meetings to think about like, okay, how is this going to impact the community? How is the way that we're going to change this pricing going to affect this group of customers? And how do we make sure that this client knows about it so that all of these people don't feel like they were considered and taken care of as part of these changes? And so there's a lot of high level strategic stuff there. In terms of advancing, as much as it sucks, show up to meetings. Look at what the senior people are talking about. Look at where they're paying attention, what questions and concerns they're bringing up, and ask why. Start trying to get an understanding of, why, when we talk about this really cool technical feature, why did we spend so much time on the rollout plan? Like, couldn't we just show everybody that this thing's great and like we're done? Why did they spend so much time on like drawing a mental map from zero to this concept? And start to, pick out what the difference is between the way when you talk to engineers. If you talk to a engineer at like the DX engineer 2 level, and then you talk to an engineer at the principal level, the conversations are both going to be good, but the focuses will be different. So what's the different? What level is somebody thinking at? What level are they asking questions at? So that you can start to really understand, where do I need to grow my strength? What instincts do I need to develop as an engineer to move to that next level, to start having a team-wide, a company-wide, a industry-wide impact on the way that people are thinking about and talking about these ideas. So Alan, you asked about just in case versus just in time. So the idea of instead of trying to gather information before you need it, gathering information at the time that you are doing something that you need it. You found that later. Okay. Okay, so I'm just scanning through questions here. I am a ways back, so everybody bear with me. I see Peruvian Idol subscribed. Thank you so much for the sub. I see a question from Haguna Matata, which is a great username, by the way. I work with a consulting agency, and I recently fleshed out a proof of concept, had a ton of fun doing it as well. To my knowledge, there does not seem to be many DevRel positions at an agency. Do you see this being something in the future, and it is a possible position that could pop up in the agency space? So maybe. Like, I think that there is room for this sort of work at an agency. I think that it's harder with agencies because agencies tend to make their money off of client projects, and a client is not going to pay for outreach. So it makes projects more expensive to employ different folks around the agency that aren't working on client projects. So that can make it hard because it messes with margins. And that is a disincentive for an agency to start actually creating this role. That being said, doing it is a very big net positive for any company that does it. If you've got somebody who is active in the community and draws a lot of goodwill and helps get you into conversations, that does have a big impact on your top of funnel, on your leads, on your ability to convert. All of those things are very good things. And so it can be worth it, but it's a difficult, like, that first step is hard because you're basically saying like, yeah, I know that we have our margins now and that we charge what we charge now. Can you carve enough out of that to create a salary for somebody who's not going to work on client work? That's a hard sell. If you can make that sale though, yeah, it's going to pay off and it's going to be worth it. I would say if you're going to be the one to propose that role, be very sure that you've got a clear path on how you're going to do the return on investment, because you'll probably be under a lot of scrutiny if you start messing with margins. But it is the sort of thing that like yeah, it can be worth money. You can absolutely make it work, but it will be an uphill battle to get it started. But if you've got a clear plan and you can go in and execute out the gate and show that top of funnel, show that extra lead and how that affects revenue down the line, yeah, I think you could make that case, and I think that you could be very successful at it. Another way to look at it is it might be more that we will, instead of seeing agencies creating DevX roles, we will see DevX agencies, which is a slightly different model. But you know, there are people, like, you kind of see this with like Corey Quinn is a good example, where he works for himself, but he's also kind of doing a lot of work that raises awareness about other companies, and he gets paid through sponsorships. He gets paid through I actually don't even know what else he gets paid. I think he gets paid through contracts and consulting. But I think a lot of the sponsorship money is effectively DevRel for hire. Like by sponsoring Corey's work, you're raising awareness because he's going to be talking about your product. And Corey Quinn is really well known in the AWS space. A lot of people look to him for opinions and insight. He's got a great voice. He's really funny. So paying Corey is a great way to not spend a full salary, but still get a lot of those benefits of DevRel. So if somebody's very skilled at DevRel, you could offer that as a service and make that something that somebody would be willing to pay you for, because it's an easier thing to justify than a full-time salary right out of the gate. So it could be a way for companies to kind of test the water with DevRel and DevX. So, you know, who knows? I'm very curious to see how the industry evolves over time. I think that we're starting to see most companies in the tech space recognize the value of having DevRel and having dev experience. Very few of the companies seem to be fully in alignment on what the exact value is or what the exact role is. So we're seeing more people write books and guidance about how it should work. We're seeing, you know, we're seeing more discussion. We're seeing more kind of dedicated spaces to talk about it. And I think that's going to lead to evolution and growth. So I'm very curious to see kind of how that grows over time. What else we got in here? Let's see. We've got, what is up, Henri? I see in the chat. Let's see. Just looking for questions. Is there potentially a pay cut to start as a new DX engineer? Very much depends on where you're coming from and what level of skill you're bringing to the DX. Like moving into DX is a career change, right? It's like moving into management. Management is not a promotion. Management is a career change. So if you're a really, really good engineer, but you've never managed before, it's possible that you'll take a pay cut to become a manager because you got to learn a bunch of skills. And the same is true for developer experience, or if you moved into product or anything like that, because being a good engineer is only a portion of being good at developer experience. You need to be an engineer, but then there's also skills in storytelling and in creating safe spaces and in understanding community dynamics and being able to create trust. A lot of just what you could call bedside manner, in the sense that people are always working to how do I present bad news? How do I present controversial opinions in a way that doesn't make somebody feel like they're being called out or slighted, but in a way that is an objective discussion of this technology. You know, I think that, and that's important too, because like when I talk about frameworks and stuff, if I talk about like how cool I think Astro is, that's not me saying like, oh, that's because Next sucks. Like that's not what I think. That's not what I believe at all. But being a DevRel, there's a tricky line to walk where we do have opinions and we do have things that we want to express, but we shouldn't, and honestly, sustainably can't express those opinions in a way that says, I like X because Y is terrible. You know what I mean? Like that idea of tearing people down and like going low and trying to like trash other technologies, it doesn't fly over time, because ultimately it just makes you look mean, and nobody wants to hang out with somebody who could turn on you at any second. So as a DX engineer, as a DevRel, a lot of your value is in like, how do you handle it when somebody attacks the framework that you use? Because it's not, you know, you can go high. That doesn't mean other people are going to stay with you. Like somebody's going to come and we'll get the odd tweet where somebody's just like super mean about Netlify, or where I see somebody who's like super mean about Learn with Jason. How do I respond to that? Do I get my feelings hurt? Do I go start a fight? You know, how does that work? And I think that part of seniority is in being in a public facing role is realizing that like most of the time when somebody's mean, it's not about you. especially when they're talking about technologies. Like if somebody attacks Netlify, they're definitely not talking about me. If somebody talks about me, they're talking about me. That's different, right? But like if somebody attacks the tech stack that I like, if somebody attacks the company that I work for, or somebody attacks a thing that I'm a fan of, that doesn't mean that they think that the people who use it are bad. And like sometimes they'll say stuff like that, and I have to be willing to just not engage. And that can be really challenging because sometimes you just want to go defend yourself because somebody's being mean and it hurts your feelings, and but that's a whole skill set you got to build. And so if you're not super skilled in that, yeah, it could absolutely mean like you're going to go from being a senior engineer to an entry level DX engineer. You're going to be really strong on the engineering side of the Venn diagram, and maybe you got a lot to learn on the like social dynamics and building community and creating safety dynamics side. That can also be the opposite. Like you could be a good engineer who's really good at community, and you might actually get promoted into a higher level of DX because you showed like a ton of capability in that space, and engineering was like not the right role for you, right? So it very much depends on the situation. It also depends on the company, because some companies pay really aggressively for DX because they know that DX is kind of a specialized skill. It requires a little bit of being a generalist in a lot of places. And so that can be expensive to find somebody who can do all of those things. And other companies see it as more of a marketing function and they pay less than engineering. So you would take a pay cut to go into it. Very much depends on how the company frames it and how the company values it. So it's kind of a case-by-case conversation that you have to have. Let's see. Let's just dive on into these questions here. Oh, this is cool. Orbit putting out a report of community tools. Let's take a peek at this because I love these. These are always really useful. So this Orbit, if you're not familiar with it, is like a community kind of measurement tool. It can show you who's super engaged and who's like if somebody becoming more engaged with your product, less engaged. You can identify your top like community members and who's putting the most effort into your community so that you make sure that people don't fall through the cracks and that kind of thing. It's really, really powerful stuff. It's very cool. I'm a big fan of the product. And then we can go look at, looks like they've got a free report on this. That's very cool. You can get a physical copy. But this is maybe a cool thing to look at, especially if you're interested in DevRel. What else do we see here? I have a question about Netlify Dev. All right, let's talk code. Developing a Blazor project in C# with Netlify functions. Managed to configure your Netlify Dev to host .NET static. Holy crap. Okay, you're doing stuff that I didn't know about. Via the .NET CLI. The problem is .NET sometimes shows input such as restart or abort, and there's no way to interact with it. Oof. Okay, so that one I'm not going to be able to respond to. However, you open an issue on the CLI repo that is monitored, and our team is going to be able to dive into that and try to help and see what they can do to back you up there. Has everybody tried the CLI, by the way? Like, I know that I bring this up every once in a while on the show, and I'm just such a big fan of this CLI. I use it all the time now, and it makes me feel like a superhero, because it's just very like, it just lets me not ever leave my terminal. It's so good. But yeah, anyways, go check that out. It's fun. Let's see. Opinionated conflicts and opinionated conversation become an interesting conversation where you can empathize but build constructive feedback. Yeah, that is a serious skill, because how can you engage with somebody who's not happy, right? And do it in a way that's not amplifying the discomfort. So if somebody comes and they say, your product is crap, I have to migrate off to other service, and you can say, well, I'm not going to engage with that at all. Like, they're clearly grumpy. I'm not going to get in the middle of this. You can, get mad and say, don't talk crap about me, I'll talk crap about you, right? Or there's this middle ground where you can say like, hey, I'm really sorry you're having a hard time. Do you want to tell me what's going on, and we can see if we can figure it out? And sometimes you can really like take the anger out of a conversation and make it productive, because a lot of times when people get grumpy, I've been trying something for 2 hours and it keeps breaking and I don't understand why. And then I'm just like, at a certain point, I hit a level of frustration where I'm like, oh, I hate this. I'm done. I don't want to deal with it anymore. And then you put a grumpy tweet on Twitter, and that's okay. Like, you're allowed to feel your feelings. That's a perfectly valid thing to do. But if I can notice that you're having a hard time and I can try to get to not like you shouldn't be grumpy, but hey, what happened? Like what happened under the hood here that made this bad for you? Then maybe I can help you solve that problem. And I've actually found that when you take the time to do that, you can turn around a conversation and somebody who was really upset can become one of your biggest fans because they feel like they got heard and helped and not just kind of ignored or told like, whatever, screw you. And it's very, but, and this is challenging because sometimes people don't want help. You'll show up and they'll be like, oh, this product sucks. And you'll say, hey, how can I help? And they'll go, you suck. And then you're like, okay, well, all right, let's just let that one go then. But that's a skill that is hard to build because it's really tough to not get worked up when other people are worked up. Humans are very good at reflecting behavior. So if somebody's really worked up, your stress response is going to rise and your desire to kind of mirror that energy is going to rise. And so you have to consciously work against your instincts to like try to not let them get a rise out of you because you're trying to get them to mirror your calmer response, right? And that's challenging. It's really hard when somebody's yelling at you to be like, hey, I'm so sorry that you're having a bad day. They're like, no, you suck. And you're like, I'm so sorry that you're feeling that way. How can I help? Right. And after it's hard. It can be really hard to have that conversation with somebody and to know that they're, sometimes you're not going to win. You're going to leave feeling bad because somebody yelled at you for 5 minutes. And that's, that can be rough. Let's see here. Questions about WASM. Have I seen any evangelism about WASM on the Jamstack? I have found that WASM is one of those things that when you have a use case for it, it is incredible. A good example is like there are some tools that I've seen. I think Squoosh.app is one of them where they built some heavy processing stuff as WASM, and that allows it to execute really, really, really quickly and really powerfully in the web, which means, yeah, it's Jamstack, right? Because you can deploy it to the web. Sometimes I find that WASM is kind of a solution in want of a problem because we'll apply it to things that aren't sufficiently expensive enough to merit the level of difficulty that currently exists with getting stuff to WASM. That's getting easier. I think that Rust is a great example of a tool that's going to kind of break this gap down. I think that we're seeing a huge amount of there's a huge amount of potential in the tooling space in Rust. We're seeing some of the best created. I already mentioned like Kat Marchand, who did so much work to make NPM a good piece of software, like NPX, and a lot of the things that made NPM great came out of their head. So how and now Kat is dedicating their time to the Rust ecosystem, and they're not the only one. We've got like really, really smart people who built a lot of the foundational stuff that lives in JavaScript. They're all starting to explore Rust as a way to do some of those things, but faster and with additional benefits and additional type safety and things that are beneficial that maybe I won't learn like as a JavaScript dev, but I'm really happy that somebody else is doing it. And those, like some of those benefits include like, hey, you can just say this thing's expensive, make it WASM, and Rust can just do that, right? That's incredibly powerful stuff that we have access to. So I think that right now WASM is one of those things that is, if you've got a problem that merits it, 100% do it. It's amazing. A lot of times it's going to be enough of a lift to get the WASM in place, at least right now, that it's potentially not worth it because the trade-off is too high in terms of maintainability and understandability of the system. But again, it very much is a case-by-case sort of thing that has a lot of potential and a lot of room to grow. So I think we'll see more of it as the future kind of unfolds in front of us here. Sabato, is it better to have loved and lost or never have loved at all? I am a big fan of loved and lost. I think that I know that you were potentially joking, and this is me giving a serious answer to a joke question, but I'm going to do it anyways. I feel very strongly that the value of being alive is not getting to the end of it, but having the experience of it, right? And so I'm not trying to get to the finish line with a clean scorecard. I'm trying to get to the end with as much experience as I can get. And so I want to try everything that I can. I want to do everything I can do. And anytime that I see something that, that little spark goes off in my heart or in my brain that says, you should try that, I want to find a way to try it. This honestly, like, this is a good example. I made rubber ducks because I drew this little rubber corgi duck, and I did this a while back. Let's actually go back to the tape. So a while back, I did this sticker where I drew the corgi duck, right? So I drew this corgi duck, and then I thought to myself, I basically made a rubber duck, and I have always make jokes about, like, talking to a rubber duck about your problems to help solve them. Rubber ducking is a thing in developers, in the developer community, is like a way to get through a problem. How do you debug it? Explain it to a rubber duck. Talking through it will help you find a solution. So then, as I was like looking at this thing, I was like, man, I wish this was a real toy. And a lot of people asked me about this. Chris Biscardi and a lot of folks in the Party Corgi Discord all kind of said, like, hey, what if this was real? How do you make this real? And I was like, the light went on in my head, and I was like, I got to find out how to make this real. And so I went and I talked to a company that can source toys, and I worked with them to get a clay model made, and I figured out a manufacturer who could do it, and I made a whole bunch of rubber corgi ducks, and so now they're real. Like, you can buy these things, right? And so this is one of those things that was foolish. It was absolutely foolish. It cost me a ton of money. I lose money on every one of these that I sell because the shipping is included, and it's very expensive to make and ship these things. And I have zero regrets, absolutely zero regrets. It took me a ton of time, a ton of effort. It cost me money, but in doing it, I was able to it's a story. Like, I'm never going to regret being able to show somebody this silly little rubber duck that I made. And it just makes me smile every time I think about it. I'm not going to get to my deathbed and be like, oh, I wish I would have saved that time and money. But I think I would have gotten to my deathbed and thought, man, I really wish I would have just made that stupid duck. Right? So I think those are the sorts of things that are it's worth it. I don't regret experiences. The only regrets that I really have are the things that I wanted to try and didn't. And so I try not to get myself in that situation too often when I can feel that, like, ooh, I really want to try that. And then I'm like, but it could be hard, or, oh, it could be scary. Screw it. Try it. Sorry, Sabato. I definitely went off on a little bit of a tangent there. Can you tell that I spend some of my time reading weird philosophy books? Nikki asking, how soon is too soon for Christmas lights? I guess whenever you want them is when you can put them up. My partner put them up yesterday, which is November 1st, which I had previously thought that you weren't allowed to do Christmas decorations until after US Thanksgiving, which is the end of November. Turns out I was incorrect about that, and the Christmas lights are now up. You can even see, I think I've got the tweet should be on my homepage here. Right here, I think. Here it is. This is the tweet that Nikki's referring to about this is my house decorated in Christmas lights already. And I do want to point out, if you look closely here, this is the Halloween skeleton that Marissa didn't even bother taking off the front porch before she put up the Christmas lights. So we are both decorated for Christmas and Halloween right now. And somewhere over, here's a pumpkin. So we're decorated for all the seasons. We've got the harvest, we've got Halloween, we've got the holidays. So it's, I guess the answer is whenever you want Christmas lights is the right time. A little tree in the background for your streams is a great idea. I think that's really fun. Die Hard is a Halloween movie. Die Hard's a Halloween movie. Gremlins is a Halloween movie. Like, people got to get this right. Glowing mushrooms at music festivals. Ryan Roga, you kindred spirits. I love stuff like that. Go make silly things. Go make things that make you smile. And it, the story is worth more than the money, in my opinion. Like, obviously I'm not going to do something that would, like, put me at risk of like financial ruin. You know, I'm not going to do something that would I have to make choices between food and this idea, or rent and this idea. But if if I've got disposable income that I can spend on something silly that makes me smile, like what else am I going to do with the money? I'm going to spend it on something, and knowing me, it's going to be food, some impulse furniture purchase, or something that's fun. And I like balancing that. You know, I want to have great food and the experiences of eating with people and all that fun. I like having furniture that I enjoy in my house. It's, I like decorating my house. It's kind of fun. But I don't want that to be the only thing I do, right? I also want to have stories. And I think that paying for stories, whether that's travel, whether that's experiences like, doing something weird, like making a rubber duck, or even if it's like, just little stuff. Like, can I, do a thing that lets somebody, like, how do I unblock a story? How do I make a story come true? Right? Those sorts of things too. It's worth the time. It's worth the money. I've never regretted that. Glowy mushrooms. I kind of want to see these mushrooms. Let's take a look. Risky click of the day. Oh, wow. Oh, these are really cool. I love that. That's a super fun thing to do. Like, I love stuff like this, like these fun decorations and things like that. Thank you for actually sending me pictures of the mushrooms. Love you, chat. You treat me good. Yeah, this is really cool. So these are like LEDs, and are these 3D printed, or how did you make these? I love this. Over 700 at one point. Oh my goodness. What an adventure. Handmade. Oh my good. Wow. That is that is an investment. These are really cool. So, oh dang, yeah, this is great. These are a great idea. I love that. Oh, these are made out of ping pong balls. Oh wow, this is so much more low tech than I thought, and it looks amazing. You know what? Have you ever seen the show Making It? It's Nick Offerman and Amy Poehler, and the show is sort of like the Great British Bake Off, but they do crafting, and it is. First of all, it's got all the vibes that I love of the Great British Bake Off, where it's a contest ostensibly, but it's not like American reality TV where everything's cutthroat and people are talking trash. This is way more collaborative. People like each other. They're all helping each other. But the other thing that I love about it is that you see people do stuff that you're like, oh, that's going to look cheap and crappy. And, they're like, oh, I found this old rope and this wicker basket. And then they make something incredible that looks really, really expensive. And it's like, oh man, I love how creative people can be. It's kind of wonderful. Ben, I kind of want to make these mushrooms too. It's I'll tell you, one of the things that I'm hoping for when the pandemic is lifted enough that we can safely just kind of gather and things like that, I really want to do some in-person Learn with Jasons where we can bring guests into a studio of some sort and do whatever. Like I've long wanted to do cooking shows. I thought that would be super fun to like bring in guest chefs and learn how to make something. But who knows? We'll see how it goes, and whether or not I can actually figure out how to make a studio work with good enough streaming setup to actually function. Because I think that's going to be really expensive, and I don't know that I can do that story without having to make a choice between eating. Yeah, in LWJ IRL AMA. I mean, yeah, let's do it. I actually do kind of love that idea. I've kicked around the idea. We were going to do at Jamstack Conf this year, there was going to be a Learn with Jason track. And as events start being more in person, I do kind of like the idea of being able to do more in-person stuff. I just don't exactly know what it looks like. It's if you've got ideas, let me know. What would you want to see? Plumbing tube and ping pong balls. It's brilliant. All right, y'all. We are at the 15-minute warning. So if you've got burning questions, fire them off. What do you want to know? And we can talk about anything. I listed out the JavaScript and Jamstack and DevRel and things like that, but we can talk about whatever. You want me to talk about something that's on your mind, you just let me know. Um, Favorite Disney movie? That's a great question. Ooh. The one that I've watched the most is Moana. That's the one that I know most of the words to. I love the music in that one. It's really well done. Um, oh, you know what else I love is Coco. Coco is a really really good movie. That's Pixar Disney, right? I think so. Um, Go to database hosting provider. Ooh, I don't have a go to. I have an it depends answer, and I'm very sorry for this. I like to use purpose-built tools when it makes sense. So if I am doing like page-based data, I'm probably reaching for something like Sanity or Contentful, because I'm building pages. They've got a bunch of tools built around that, and Sanity has cool stuff like multiple people can be editing the same document and it doesn't break or cause issues. You have like granular rollback and like different things that really make it easy to function on that data. If I'm working on something a little more freeform or something that's like, I don't know, like voting, I'm probably reaching for Fauna or Hasura or something like that. But there's other really interesting tools. Like if I want authentication, maybe I'm reaching for Supabase now. Like Supabase is pretty dope. It has a lot of authentication stuff. It's got a very like Firebase like API, which is pretty powerful. I mean, Firebase itself is cool. We've got shows on Firebase. And I also I'm really curious about PlanetScale. So I've got an upcoming episode with PlanetScale, and they've got some promises that are really interesting. So one of them is that they're putting a Postgres database at multiple locations around the world. So theoretically speaking, instead of your database having to be hit in whatever data center it's in like US East, you will have multiple points of presence for your database around the world. And they are also allowing this idea that I think a lot of people have been asking for, which is the ability to quickly branch and merge databases the way that you branch and merge source code. So something cool with PlanetScale that I'm pretty excited about is like there's the potential that you have a Jamstack site and you open a pull request, and as part of opening your pull request, you also get a branched version of your database that's like synced with that pull request. Then you can go through it, you can make some changes, you can do some tests and whatever, and then you merge it. And if it's like just testing, like your QA branch, you would discard the database branch and just go back to production. If it's your like a deployment branch where you've added a new feature, then you're able to build out the new feature and make the database changes to support it all in this deploy preview. And then when you merge it, you also merge the changes to the database so that it all goes live at once, which is really, really exciting. That's a really powerful way to do things. And it feels like the sort of thing that has the potential to move the whole industry forward. So I'm excited to see how it works. I'm excited to give it a try. We've got an episode coming up with John Myers, I think the second week of January. So I'm really excited about that. We're going to do an episode there. Yeah, I mean, the database space is hot right now. We've got like later this week, I've got Natalia Venditos coming on to talk about MongoDB, which is a really cool way to do databases. And they're also doing like a distributed databases play where they're going to have the databases around the world. And so theoretically they should be really fast. And Mongo, unlike Postgres, is kind of, they call it NoSQL, or you can call it kind of document-based store, where it's a little less like database architecty, where you don't have to do a lot of strong structuring. So if you like Firebase, MongoDB is a pretty fun way to kind of get that same experience of like, hey, you can put whatever you want in here. And that can be nice for when you've got a project where there's a lot of like custom fields, or where you're not 100% sure what the data is going to look like because you're tracking block-based stuff or anything like that. It can be really useful in that way. So yeah, you can come check that episode out. I mean, this is I basically just named every database out there, but to be completely honest, I use a lot of different databases because they all serve different purposes really well. And I tend to look for not the technology that I like, but for the technology that solves the problem. And that's why I feel like it's a very much an it depends kind of answer. More DB centers in Canada? You're probably right. Prisma runs in serverless now, which is also very cool. Prisma is like it can sit on top of Postgres and a couple other database flavors and give you like very cool TypeScript autocomplete for your database and all the operations for CRUD and stuff. It's really, really powerful. They're doing some really fun stuff. I actually am going to be giving a talk at the Prisma serverless event, which is in like 2 weeks. Let's see. Prisma serverless. Where is this event? Maybe I need to write event. Where are you at, Prisma? Serverless conference. I was looking right at it. Okay, so this is the Prisma serverless conference. Oh yeah, Anthony's already all over it. Yes, so I'll be at this one if you want to see more. I mean, you should go watch this with or without me because the information about Prisma is going to be really interesting. But there's a lot of good stuff coming in here, and I'm going to be looking specifically at how to build on the Jamstack with Prisma and serverless, and don't exactly know what I'm covering yet because I definitely haven't written my talk yet, but it's going to be great, I promise. So let's see here. Any other good questions? Yeah, talk-driven development, 100%. Yeah, Cassidy. Yeah, they want me to turn it in by Friday. So yeah, it's going to be great. I'm going to do a good job. It's going to be, well, maybe I'll do a good job. I'm going to do a job, and you can determine whether or not I did a good job. Also, welcome, Cassidy. I see that you didn't even have to drop a boop to trigger a boop storm. That's you, legend. You're a legend. Let's see. It's fun to build talks with Prisma. Oh, what's up, Taylor? Hello. How are you? Taylor's gonna come on the show, and we're gonna play. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Taylor? Were you here when I was talking about Planet Scale just now? Oh, Anthony, your sub expired. Let's see. I see a question coming in from Shabrecht. I want to give back to the community and pay it forward by creating content. If you had to start over from zero, how would you tackle this now? That's a great question. I think that right now, one of the most interesting spaces for people to be in is as you are learning something, share what you're learning. And I think that the challenge in doing that is that it's easy to think that anything you're learning, other people already know, because as you're learning it, you're going to read other people's blog posts, you're going to see documentation, you're going to find all these resources. And so it's kind of easy to say, yeah, I mean, somebody's already covered this. If I do it, I'm just kind of repeating what everybody else said. And I think that the strength in writing as you're learning is not necessarily that you're producing new material, but anybody who's writing from the position of a learner, especially as you are getting
to it. Come on, little compooper.
You see it chugging. But as you are learning, the writing from the perspective of a new learner, nobody who knows this technology can get into a beginner's mindset. Like I have been writing React for 5 years now. And so for me to try to think about what it's like to learn React, I just can't remember anymore. I don't have a memory of what it's like to be brand new to React. I don't have a memory of what it's like to be brand new to JavaScript or HTML or CSS. And so what you can do as you're learning something, as you're diving in, is you can bring a fresh perspective and you bring new analogies, new ways of thinking. You ask questions that I would never think to ask. And that is content that is really beneficial for people who are learning at the same level you are. I think it's always easier to learn from somebody who's like a step or two ahead of you as opposed to somebody who's a decade ahead of you, because the context gap is narrower. There's also benefit for me reading what somebody who's learning from the experience now has to say, because when you talk about what you struggled with, some of the things that you're going to struggle with are things that I struggled with and then just like printed on my memory. So I just know that we do this silly workaround that's not documented anywhere. It's just a thing that's in the back of my head. I will never remember that that's just a thing I know and not a thing that somebody has to like painstakingly learn unless I see you talking about where you struggled. And that can help me improve my own documentation, because now when I write, I'll remember, oh yeah, I remember I read this article where this person was struggling with this thing. And I forgot that, oh, yeah, let me include a little caveat. Hey, if you've never seen this before, this is what it is. And those are the sorts of things that really, I think, move the industry forward and help people by doing that. So if it was me, I would do that, and I would work on submitting to lots of different publications. So publish on your own site, syndicate that to dev.to. You can always kind of import posts from dev to dev.to, and that's a really great way to do it. Submit to Smashing Magazine, submit to CSS Tricks, submit to the lead dev. You can submit to a list apart. There's a decent number of publications out there that are reputable, that do great editing work. They'll pay you for articles, and it's a good way to get the name out there and go. Let's get it on down to Ben with the gift sub. Look at that. Just scrolling through a wall of boops to make sure I didn't miss any questions. If you want to watch terrible programming on the struggle bus, do me a follow now. All right, yeah, everybody go follow. Let's do a shout out to Ryan. There you are. Go follow that. And then let's see, more and more boops. We're all junior devs. The curse of knowledge, absolutely, Taylor. I think there's a huge benefit of learning from beginners. It's super helpful. Let's see. All right, Ryan, I'm glad that we're saying the same thing. But yeah, always do a code along. And you know what? The like where a pro tells a noob what to do and solve the problems that they come up. I swear that's the whole premise of Learn with Jason is, let's find somebody who knows things. And then I'm going to ask all the questions that I can ask. I'm going to push all the things that, try to let the chat ask questions as well, so that the expert is able to guide us through. And we're here to ask the beginner questions and try to get that context and understand, what is this for? Why does it do it the way that it does it? Where did this decision come from? Those are really valuable things, right? And so yeah, we got a lot of good stuff. My experience learning blank, 100%. Do that all the time. And don't make them don't worry about making these posts perfect or encyclopedic or even particularly polished. Like, it is really helpful to just write up your experience of learning things as you're learning it, as a collection of notes even, there's a concept called digital gardening, which you'll see written about all over the place. Maggie has a great post on this, and I would definitely check out this kind of stuff, dig in there and look at this idea, because one of the things that I think is really interesting is if you look at Maggie's site, for example, she has this idea of evergreen being a really well considered post and a seedling being she wrote she's basically just taken some notes on what she's done, and there's a lot of coming soon stuff in here. And this one, yeah, look at this. This one is just a couple notes, some references, some slides, and all of this is very hey, here she did an illustration, she got a tweet, a little bit of notes, right? So actually, this is a great post to go and read. But the seedling thing, it's you don't have to get it perfect. You don't even have to get it done. You can just say this is a work in progress if you want to read about it. And that can be really useful for folks. So yeah, I think, yeah, what Ben's saying too, it's important to get something out and then learn from it and improve. I think that a big block that I see for a lot of people is that they don't want to ship it until it's right. And the sad fact of the matter is that nothing will ever be right and nothing will ever be perfect. You will always ship it and find one more typo or one more sentence or one more point that you wanted to clarify. And the better way, in my opinion, the better way to approach this is to ship lots of things and build a story on that content. You know, instead of trying to ship one post that houses all of your worldview, ship 15 posts, each containing one thought and all building that worldview. And you can even like ship a post about one of your previous posts with a clarification based on something that you learned. I've written plenty of blog posts that are like, a while back I wrote this post, and you know, here's what I was trying to get across. Here's some things that were pointed out to me where I was off the mark. So I'm going to write a new post that kind of clarifies this. And that's a great way to like have this discussion. And it embraces the same thing that we want in engineering, which is we shouldn't be sitting on our ideas until they're perfect. We should be collaborative about them. Take the idea and put the idea out and get feedback. Show it to somebody. See what they think. Find out what questions they ask. Usually the questions they ask are great topics for your next post. And so you can start building this body of work by starting a conversation. And a problem that I've run into is in the past, I would sit and I would workshop my posts until I felt like they were ironclad. And what I'd done by trying to make them ironclad is I'd taken out anything that was discussable. I basically boiled them down to just facts, and they weren't very interesting to discuss. People would either read it and say, I agree, or they would read it and say, I disagree. And that was it, right? There wasn't really any discussion. And when you put out something that's like, I'm thinking about this and I'm not really sure where I'm going with this, but I think I'm onto something, that sparks a discussion because somebody else will say, you know, I've been thinking about that too, and here's my take, right? And now you start to have an actual like engaging conversation and not somebody saying like, I agree with your point or I disagree with your point. And I think that's a thing worth doing. Oh yeah, Anne Lamont Shitty First Drafts is great for that. Let's see if we can find, is this hers? Yes. So this is Brain Pickings. This is a good one. I think, this is rebranded. Brain Pickings is now The Margin Alien. Oh, okay. Bird by Bird is a good book. If you haven't read it, it's on like the creative process. I've actually written a post on Shitty First Drafts as well. Somewhere in here. I don't even know if this is a good post. I wrote it a very long time ago, so sorry. But yeah, I also just realized I attributed this to Precision Nutrition because I hadn't read Bird by Bird when I was contracting for Precision Nutrition. Huh. Well, I need to go and update this because I misattributed it. Cool. Anyways, lots and lots of, see, we're learning today. Like 2 weeks ago, they rebranded The Margin Alien. Okay, so I'm glad I'm not like years late to that rebrand. It's good fertilizer. That's a poop joke. PDF with the actual post text as well. That's great. I can drop that into the show notes. But the general idea is like you just get something out there and try, because an idea that's good but never shared doesn't have a lot of value. A half-formed idea that's maybe just okay that's actually shared is going to do more to have an impact, and that's an important way to look at things. And I think that's a good ending point for us, right? We're out of time, so it is now time to wrap this thing up. So let me do a quick shout out to our sponsors. So first of all, we've had live captioning all day. We've had Ashley hanging out with us. Thank you so much, Ashley, for being here and writing down all these things. That's from White Coat Captioning. White Coat's with us every week at every show, so that is very helpful. That's made possible through the support of our sponsors. Netlify, Fauna, and Auth0 all kick in to make this show more accessible to more people, and that means a lot to me. And then we've got a schedule with a lot of good stuff coming up. So make sure you go over to the schedule page on the site and hit this add on Google Calendar button or follow on Twitch, because what we're going to be doing next is later this week, Natalia's coming on. We're going to talk about distributed databases in MongoDB with serverless and all sorts of fun things like this. It's going to be a whole lot of fun. Next week, we are going to have Pato on the show. We're going to talk about progressive web apps. And if you're not familiar with progressive web apps and service workers, this is going to be really fun. We're going to jump in here and play around. Sugun Adebayo is going to teach us about Chakra UI, Sugun is the creator of Chakra UI. So this is going to be really fun. I don't use a lot of these front end tools, so I'm actually really excited to see what they're all about. And then we're just going to keep it rolling. Like we're going to do login for Svelte. We're going to do styling with attribute selectors, which is like, if you're a CSS nerd, this is going to be a whole lot of fun. Also, just like Michael Chan is a delight to hang out with. So, if you are not familiar with his work, you should definitely show up here and get familiar with it. And then, yeah, we've just got, like, I haven't even added everything yet. There's so much coming. I've got like 10 more episodes in my inbox that I need to get posted to the site. So, it's going to be great. Make sure you head over there, you get these figured out. And with that, everybody, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. We will be back on Thursday. And for now, we're going to go find somebody to raid. We will see you next time. Thanks, everyone.